Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to look at something, well, a little bit different. This is a Toshiba Satellite U845W. Now there's a U845, no W at the end means no widescreen. That looks like your kind of normal Ultrabook. This guy, obviously what we call him double wide. Very long, very narrow, 21:9 aspect ratio. Certainly a unique Ultrabook, and we're going to look at it now. Well, here's something that you don't see every day. Sure, we have widescreen notebooks. Typically those are 16:9 aspect ratio, like 1920x1080 if you're talking full HD, or sometimes 16:10, which Apple prefers. But here we have something that is 21:9 in aspect ratio. That is just unusual, isn't it? But before you go, yo, yuck, think outside the box a little bit, and we'll show you some reasons why you actually might like the Toshiba Satellite U845W Ultrabook, a different kind of Ultrabook. First off, it's amazing. There's a regular Satellite 845 that is a 14-inch Ultrabook, aluminum body, Toshiba's usual, I hate to say it, but dull styling. And this, well, they're not even twin separated at birth. Somebody was adopted here. They look so different. I'll show you that in a minute. But we have a very stylish looking kind of smoky aluminum metal top over here, Toshiba logo. And then this texturized black rubber finish. And it's really cool looking in person. It looks sort of like Scandinavian modern appliance you'd expect to see in a designer kitchen or something like that almost. And we've got the metal trim on the sides that gives it a little contrast there, and the bottom is also the same soft touch kind of finish. And to take this bottom off, there's a whole lot of Phillips head, not the usual more difficult to find Torx T5 screwdriver head. And I believe you have to take off the little rubber foot in the center here. I think there's another screw that's hidden under here. But anyway, that's how you would access the internals. You can see the attention to detail that they spent here. We've got the little metal ring around the rubber feet that do stick up a bit. Just in general, a nice looking machine. On the side here, again, that two-tone treatment looks pretty good. We have USB 3.0 port, we have headphone 3.5mm jack, and a microphone jack, and this does double duty as Toshiba's sleep and play port. For those of you who are familiar with the Satellite line, some of them have had that feature before. If the notebook is asleep, if it's hibernating, it's completely turned off, and you plug in your smartphone, your iPhone, your iPod, whatever it is, through the 3.5mm jack to here, you can use the speakers. And well, why is that cool? Because this has really amazing Harmon Kardon stereo sound, which we'll demo for you. So this really is like a portable speaker system in its own right. It sounds that good. Full-size HDMI port. This is our charging port right here. And on this side, got our little lock slot. We have an actual Ethernet jack, pretty much a rarity on Ultrabooks. You do see it sometimes. Drops down a little bit to accommodate the thickness of the Ethernet jack. It's 10100 Ethernet. And two more USB 3.0 ports, and it does support sleep and charge as well. And on the front, we have your SD card slot. So let's open it up and take a look inside. What do you see? First thing, very wide but short display. 1792 by 768 pixels. So in terms of height, you're getting the same resolution you do on most Ultrabooks, and even a lot of regular notebooks. 1366 by 768 would be the standard. But instead you've got a lot more pixels going this way. So you're not losing anything here, though you might feel like it at first because it's clearly out of balance, shall we say, compared to what we're used to looking at. But you get the 768 right here. This is a gloss LED backlit display, but the glare is not too bad for a glossy display. It hasn't driven me crazy, and I don't like glossy displays much. Again, less glossy than the regular U845. It's not an IPS display, but it does have very good, very wide viewing angles. Just as Apple showed us with some of their products, you don't have to have an IPS display to have wide viewing angles, nice colors, good brightness, all that kind of thing. So if you do angle it extremely, you'll notice that you'll get that inversion effect, but you have a very wide berth before that happens compared to most notebooks and sadly most other Ultrabooks where you have a very limited sweet spot. Not the case with this guy here. And now we'll take a look at the keyboard and other good stuff on the deck here. You can see we have a chiclet style keyboard here. Nice and spread out. It's 14.4 inches, so you have room for, well, good key spacing. Some people might wish that this had a number pad. Really, you don't start to see that until you get up to 15.6 inch and larger notebooks. And the reason why we don't have that here is because we have these huge speakers right here on each side. And the driver, you can see the outline of it right here. It's actually quite large. Harmon Kardon stereo sound. Some of the best sound that you'll ever hear on a notebook computer. Really, it beats my NV15 with Beats Audio, and we'll demo that for you. But That's why these are here. It's not just to copy the Apple look by having speakers on the side. Got a nice large wrist rest area here and a pretty decent sized trackpad, and I like the little ring around it and a little drop down so you can feel when you've accidentally wandered off it. It's a Synaptics trackpad. It behaves nicely, does not do weird or wonky things. And by the way, this keyboard is backlit, and Toshiba, because there is a little extra room here, they did give us things like the home, the page up, page down, and end keys over here, so you've got the full set of keys. And up top here, you don't have to hit the FN key to use these settings up here to control multimedia playback, brightness, volume. You'll see on-screen indicators for everything here, except for some reason, volume. It doesn't actually show you volume changes on screen. Well, we are there. The backlighting is a pleasant white. It illuminates from around the edges of the keys, and it works on a timer, or you can set it to be off all the time or on all the time if you prefer that. Now with longer notebooks, you worry a little bit more about the hinge, but these hinges, they may be small but pretty sturdy, very well designed. There's no wobble here on the display. By the way, this is as far back as the display goes. It goes back reasonably far, not super far. And when it's closed, there is no wobble or shake of the lid. It's nice and firmly closed, so good stuff there. Since this is an Ultrabook, that means you get Intel ULV ultra-low voltage CPUs, 3rd generation Ivy Bridge, and it's available with Core i5 at 1.7 gigahertz or a Core i7 at 1.9 gigahertz, the usual stuff that you see on Ultrabooks. And it has 6 gigs of RAM, so that's more than the usual 4 gigs. It's a little bit more expandable than others. If you remove that bottom there, there's 2 gigs of RAM soldered on the motherboard and a 4 gig DIMM, so in theory I assume you should be able to upgrade this to a maximum of 10 gigs. Typical of Ultrabooks, it's available in a variety of configuration. You can either get it, this one, like this one here, this is the base model, it's $9.99. Actually, I think you get a lot for your money here compared to other Ultrabooks that cost as much in terms of ports, display, and all that kind of thing. But this has a 500 gig, 5400 RPM hard drive with a 32 gig SSD to speed up boot resume times, all that kind of thing, speed up Windows activities. And Toshiba has a little utility that you can actually turn the speed boot on and off. Say you're installing a lot of Windows updates and you don't want speed boot, you can disable it. It is turned off by default, oddly. And that uses an mSATA interface according to Toshiba. We're going to tear this apart, and for a full review we'll tell you about all the internals and show you a picture. Because it's interesting, if that's an mSATA drive, that means you could go and get an mSATA SSD of much larger capacities, and well, let's say have your way with the machine. You could have 128 gig mSATA drive to put your OS on and core apps on, and you could use the 500 gig for your media files or something like that. But again, in our full review, we'll have all the information on what happens when you take this guy apart. Machine has single-band Intel Wi-Fi 802.11 BGN with Intel Wide-Eye for wireless display, and it has Bluetooth 4.0 high speed. And here for a little strange side-by-side comparison, isn't it? On top here we have the Toshiba Satellite U845, and below it we have the U845W. So you can see the difference in height and the difference in depth overall. They're about the same thickness. And the regular 845 just has a 1366 by 768 display, and as you can see right now, it's a lot more glary. And again, side by side, U845W, regular U845, bearing absolutely almost no resemblance to each other, but you can see the difference in form factor. This is a 14-inch Ultrabook, and it's one of those 14-inch Ultrabooks that goes for the 13-inch size, 13.3 inch, so it's pretty compact this way. So you can see this guy is even longer because it's 14.4 inches. Let's compare it to the NV15, which is a 15.6-inch notebook next. And here we have it on top of the NV15 here, 15.6-inch notebook, so you can see how much extra space the NV takes up. NV's of course a lot thicker too, but it's a full-size notebook. Alright, so what do you do with 1792 pixels? You do a lot of stuff side by side, obviously, which some of us who are hyper-productive already do. You need to have a web browser open while you've got your Word document open, for example. Likewise, if you're using applications like Adobe Photoshop or any of the CS Suite family members, you've got your document and then you've got a whole lot of floating palettes. And when you've got a low resolution display, well, the palettes pretty much, they're necessary evil because they're obscuring what you're looking at. Here you have enough room for your palettes to be on the side. So I've got my Word document open here and I want to look up something on the web. And there it's taking up a whole lot of greedy space at the moment. So that's the last size I left it at. Now see, there's this extra little button up here. Toshiba has this little configurable side-by-side utility, and this will automatically put your windows in a manageable size, and then you can put them wherever you want. And you can set up a variety of ways that I can throw your window around. If you want to play around and watch a YouTube video while you're working, you can do that too, obviously, because there's a lot of space over here. So for productivity, this can actually make sense. I know a lot of people think about the up and down as being important because we all hate scrolling up and down, but this is also very useful. And say you move your windows around, you want to get them tidied back up, you just tap over here and boom, puts it back nice and tidy for you. And clearly the widescreen can be a charming feature for those of you who work on Excel spreadsheets that blow out wide a lot of the time. Now, while we're talking about working side by side, you say to yourself, what about a 1920 by 1080 display, right? You're getting even more pixels there with and a little bit more height. So we have our Asus ZenBook Prime UX31 here, 1920 by 1080 pixels, and we're looking at same Word document and same web page here, and you can see, well, you're not really getting more here. Now, by default, Asus sets the font scaling windows to 125%, and I do leave it that way versus 100% here because honestly, it's too hard to read. So if you stick with the standard font scaling setting here, you can see you're actually not gaining anything, which is shocking. And in fact, this is managing, you can see, to fit in more of the page, since our page will expand and contract to fit width of your browser window here. You're just getting actually a bit better of an experience actually on the widescreen model for those of you who like to work side by side a lot, despite the fact that this has, well, more pixels. Now about video playback. We're going to check out some movie trailers we have. Now movie trailers, well, they're typically very widescreen. When you get a Blu-ray though, it's usually set up to work with your TV, which is 1920 by 1080, so the aspect ratio is changed, so you're still going to get black bars if you're playing a Blu-ray, if you just plug in an external Blu-ray player, for example, something like that. But if you're watching movie trailers, and who knows, maybe the future of the web is going to be we're actually going to get to stream really true widescreen aspect ratio videos, this would be great, but well, I wouldn't hold my breath either about that happening. Probably things are going to continue to be geared towards TVs and more standard resolution panels.
Our therapy.
And see, here's our movie trailer, which is truly widescreen, and you can see there it is, no black bars. Really cool. It just fits the aspect ratio, and it's a unique panoramic experience that really it feels like, well, you're in the movie theater.
Just one subject. I want to make sure it's stable.
Today we're going to look at two affordable Android smartphones. Just so you can hear the speakers, this is just about half volume. It's louder than I am.
Names before 1, 2, or maybe 3 times. Well, you have.
If we pop this out full screen.
But these are the latest.
So you're going to have black bars here because this is 1920 by 1080 format.
Section of the smartphone freezer.
And now we're in Netflix to see how some movie streaming looks. We'll pop that out to full screen. And you can see you do get some black bars around. Looks absolutely phenomenal though, and it's a nice effect being widescreen. In terms of performance, well, it's solidly ultrabookish, which is to say pretty good certainly for everyday tasks, for streaming video, for playing video, for doing productivity tasks, even some light gaming. This has Intel HD 4000 graphics, no dedicated graphics here. And with our Core i5 system, we scored 6837 in PC Mark Vantage, which is a pretty good number for something that has a conventional 5400 RPM hard drive. The SSD drives really boost up the performance numbers in synthetic benchmarks, though experientially they may not make that much of a difference in terms of actual performance. It doesn't mean that it's twice as swift at doing Photoshop, for example, just because it has a faster SSD. On 3D Mark Vantage, it did 3245, which is actually surprisingly good for something with Intel HD 4000 integrated graphics. And you can see the Windows Experience scores. Here we have a 6.9 for our processor, 7.4 for RAM. That's particularly high. Even in my Asus ZenBook, which also has DDR3 1600 MHz RAM, it only scored a 5.9 for memory, so they must be using some pretty good RAM here. Desktop performance for Aero is 5.2, that's just okay, not too impressive. 6.3 for 3D gaming graphics, and 5.9 for the hard disk, which is pretty much standard for a conventional hard disk. The machine is just fine for MS Office, as I mentioned. I use it for Photoshop, CS6, and it works for me. But if your day in and day out bread and butter thing is to live in Adobe CS Suite, you're definitely going to always want a faster machine, perhaps only with dedicated graphics. But for those of us who use it lightly throughout the day, occasionally that kind of thing, it's absolutely fine, as is any Ultrabook. HD video editing, Ultrabooks, I don't usually recommend them. They don't have as much processing power there. You can do it certainly for fun. You got some videos you want to edit you took with your smartphone or your camera from your vacation, that kind of thing, yes, but if you're a professional video editor, then no, not an Ultrabook. Now how about gaming? We're going to test out Batman Arkham City, and we're actually going to play it at widescreen resolution, which is pretty darn cool. And we're going to use the wired Xbox PC controller to play Batman. Alright, so here we are playing at 1792 by 768 resolution, widescreen. The game actually supports it. And we have most effects set low, a couple set at medium, and you can see we're managing about 30 fps. I would turn some more effects down. A lot of action going on here right now, too. When playing games, you can hear the fan on this notebook. Otherwise, it's reasonably quiet most of the time, and it doesn't really roar when you're playing games, but you'll hear it like any laptop. And core temperatures are around 62 degrees centigrade, which is just fine. 105 is the maximum. Of course, you never really want to go near 105 degrees centigrade with your notebook, but that's certainly within an acceptable range and pretty decent, especially with something this cool. There's lots of cooling vents on the rear, and I think that really helps a lot, keeping it chilled. So now we're going to try out that sleep and play feature. If the notebook is hibernating, if it is sleeping, if it is turned off, its speakers become your playthings for your mobile players. So you use the rear audio jack here, which is a combo microphone and a sleep and play jack. Plug in our little standard 2-ring connector here, audio connector. Plug it into the HTC One X. So there it is, your external speaker system built into your notebook. Sounds really nice and full. I mean, you know, you pay about $99 probably for an external speaker system that sounds about that good for your smartphone, your iPhone, that kind of thing. The notebook has a 720p webcam, a built-in microphone, obviously also a microphone jack just in case you prefer that, and it can do facial recognition for logging in. It has a 4-cell battery inside, comes with a 45-watt charger that is fairly compact. And here's our beautiful little, shall we say, classic notebook-style charger. Lots of cord here, so you don't have to be too close to the wall. So far I found that it lasts about 6.5 hours on a charge, which is pretty good. We're still testing battery life, so be sure to look out for our full written review to see our final battery life gauging on this, but it looks like it's going to be a little bit better than average for Ultrabooks, where we see typically 5.5 to 6 hours. This guy looks like it's going to be more like 6.5. Of course, there is room for, well, more battery in here, isn't there? So that's the Toshiba Satellite U845W. It's available now, starts at $9.99, and honestly, I don't care about convention. I care about what works for me. There's a lot to say that's really good about this. The side-by-side use, the ability to load a bunch of pallets on the side. The fact that, as Toshiba likes to point out, if you're flying on an airplane, usually you've got enough width, certainly for a 14 to 15-inch notebook. It's the height that's the issue, especially when the bozo ahead of you decides to recline all the way. You've got lots of room here. Also kind of handy on the coffee table when you're trying to watch the TV while you're looking at the screen, which of course you shouldn't be doing. You should be working, shouldn't you? You also get more than you usually get for $9.99 on Ultrabook. Most Tier 1 Ultrabooks start about that price. You get way better speakers. You get a nice backlit keyboard. You get 3 USB 3.0 ports. Good stuff there. Ethernet jack. Really nice build quality. Classy looking machine. Thin. Nice trackpad. Actually works well. Good attention to design everywhere. And some upgradable parts inside. Not bad. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website for the full review of the Satellite U845W, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.